China may be Iran's biggest friend. That doesn't mean that China trusts Iran. President Trump is in Beijing meeting with Xi Jinping, and while most of the headlines are focused on trade, Taiwan, and the usual U.S. China tension, the real story is Iran. You can see here the story out of Reuters. China has a problem. China wants Iranian oil. China wants Iran as a counterweight to American power. They want Iran to keep pressure on the West. But China doesn't want Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz, controlling global energy markets, or getting its hands on a nuclear weapon. In other words, Iran is useful to China until Iran becomes a liability. And that may be the opening Trump is looking for in these negotiations here. We've got a lot of other stories happening overnight and coming out this morning. One is Russia. Russia has now partnered with the Taliban. The Ukraine was hit overnight with a drone swarm out of Russia. About 1,500 drones hit their capital of Kyiv. The Prime Minister of Britain is about to be replaced. And Kuwait captured 4 IRGC sailors trying to target United States military forces on an American base. So let's just jump right into this. Now, the big story, like I said, is dominating every news outlet, and it's going to be dominating the conversation in Iran, because Iran is not at the table that they're being discussed at. They are nowhere near these negotiations. Xi Jinping, the president of the United States, and his coalition that he took with him are bringing real issues and real leverage to China. You've got Tim Cook, you've got Elon Musk, you have Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Scott Bessent. They're all there. They are all in the room as these negotiation happens. Now, I'm not saying that you can trust China, but I would say this. I would much rather have China as an ally than an adversary. And I think the opening that the president of the United States is using here is that Iran is bad for everyone. They are toxic. They are the friend that every one of us has, that no matter what they do, no matter what you do, they always make the wrong decision. They're always wanting to borrow money, but that friend has something that you need. They've got what you want. And that's how China and Iran basically have a partnership right now. China is locked into a deal with Iranian oil. Now, Trump, you can see smiling like the cat that drank the last bit of milk, knows that we have control of Venezuela. And that is the largest oil-producing nations in the Western Hemisphere, along with the United States. And I think the president of the United States is going to leverage that. He's going to leverage the ability for the United States to supply oil to China rather than Iran. Let China cut back on some of their reliance on Iranian oil, and let's work out a deal. Art of the deal is in place here. Now, they rolled out the red carpet, hundreds of red carpets, in this meeting, in this negotiation. And Xi Jinping was very adamant in the briefing that he had this morning that we need to come together. We need to be allies. You would much rather have us as an ally rather than an adversary. And I'm really glad that Xi Jinping actually said that, because that says to me that he is open to negotiation. He is open to a partnership. That's what we need right now. We need open dialogue. If we're ever going to get anywhere with China, we need open dialogue. We need to be able to trust but verify. And I think that's the big thing there. Trust but verify. You know China is going to be working some backroom deals with other people, but at the same time, we can leverage what we have. And we have what China can't get right now, which is oil. Now, the other thing that happened overnight, and I think this is really going to annoy Xi Jinping, I think it's going to annoy the president of the United States, while they're meeting, Iran continues attacks on ships near the Strait of Hormuz. And at some point, with the president sitting there, you know the conversation has to be between Trump and Xi Jinping. Like, hey, look at this. This is what they're doing. We're here trying to negotiate some level of responsibility, some level of peace, and Iran continues to launch attacks. Trump, it goes in here a little bit more. Rubio warned Beijing that support of Tehran risked United States-China ties. Part of the conversation that's happening there is cutting off the flow of fentanyl into the United States that's coming from China. The negotiations have been on again, off again, on again, off again. If you listen to Axios or if you read Axios, there's been about 27 deals that have been sent back and forth, and none have came to any level of fruition. So I think that is the real leverage that they're trying to come together on. And when you have two out of the three largest world superpowers sitting down on peaceful terms, that doesn't bode well for countries like Iran, which are basically right now just a bunch of radical guerrillas running around the desert there in the Middle East. And they have not been good business partners. They are putting at risk China's economy. They are leveraging their own needs or their own wants or basically their own level of hatred towards America into something that could really make the Chinese economy crumble. Now, while this happened, there is another massive move going on in Ukraine. Russia pounded Ukraine in the heaviest wartime drone attack over 2 days. And this footage is some of the wreckage here. And the Kyiv mayor comes out, talks about the death toll that happened. You can see that this is the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko. I think he was a boxer. But what you're seeing right now, while two out of these three world powers are meeting, you can see that Russia is taking advantage of this. And for some reason, though, the comments below, it's okay when Ukraine launches drone attacks against Russia. But when Russia responds, Russia's bad. For months, we have seen drone attack after drone attack after drone attack from Ukraine. But now that the shoe's been put on the other foot, we're supposed to be, outraged and upset. I don't know if the Ukraine-Russia situation is going to ever come to any level of resolution without some kind of compromise. At some point, Ukraine is going to have to probably give up some of that land. I think Russia is going to have to make some accommodations to their deal to withdraw troops from that area. I don't know how this is going to play out. This is the one real hangup that the president has tried to get some negotiations to work, but it hasn't. So the one thing the president has done is cut off about 90% of the supply to Zelensky. I think Zelensky has in many ways been his own worst enemy. And whenever I say that, this comes out in the news. Zelensky's ex-top aide arrested as this Ukraine grift, they call it a graft, widens. And he is up on charges for money laundering. And a lot of the money that he's probably laundered or stolen, allegedly, is probably money from the American taxpayer. Thank you, Joe Biden. His name is Andriy Yermak, and I'm sure I'm butchering that name, laundering $10.5 million via a housing project. That sounds very familiar. He denies charges. Bail was set at $3.2 million by an anti-corruption court in Ukraine, which I didn't even know they had anything called an anti-corruption court in Ukraine because that's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Now, he has resigned amid this government shakeup, and there's rumors coming out that Zelensky may just pardon this guy so that they keep him quiet. But this is, this is part of the problem in that area. The president of Ukraine, there's some shady things, shady questions to be answered behind where he's buying all these houses, where he's buying all these pieces of property, apparently in South Florida, on the Mediterranean. A lot of his staff are driving these Bugattis. And now Russia is punching back. They just had their massive celebration, and they're punching back. And with that, Russia is now lining up a partnership with the Taliban, a full partnership with the Taliban. And I'm going to say this, I'm not a fan of this at all, but the Taliban is very well equipped. They have a lot of military equipment. Thank you, President Biden, for giving them that. It's pitiful that we even have to jokingly say that, but it's true. And the Taliban is probably, we left too much equipment there not to ever need to go back and get it. And Russia's going to capitalize on this. I'd love to get your thoughts down below. What do you think about that? Whenever I see the Taliban holding an M4, that bothers me. That bothers me a lot, because that should be only in the hands of an American or American allies that we arm in support of operations that we want to be beneficial for the American people. Now, the other story that's coming out right now is in the UK, the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer is about to be ousted. And I can't say that I'm upset by this at all. He is not an ally of the United States. Right now, Britain is not an ally of the United States. I know they just sent a ship to the Gulf of Oman to help with the Strait of Hormuz, but it's only because they have no other option. And King Charles just came to the United States, met with us. Sadly, there were no Kings rallies during that time period. But Starmer is a problem that the UK probably needs to get rid of. He has not been an ally for the British people. He's done a lot for people coming into the UK, many of them illegal migrants that are coming in there. They've got a deputy prime minister. She is, might be the next prime minister there. I'm not sure how this plays out, but the UK has real issues that are not beneficial to the United States right now. And that leads me back to the Middle East with the UK sending a ship there. And I want to show you something here on this map. So everyone is really familiar by now, probably more familiar than you've ever been, with the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz is still under control, apparently, of the IRGC. They're going to claim that. The United States let 30 ships through over the last couple of days, mainly humanitarian reasons, carrying aid, carrying goods, because of all these tankers that are in here with sailors on board. So a lot of humanitarian stuff going through there. These have all been boarded. They've been verified. So over the last 24 hours, Iran has decided to turn their back on another ally. You can see Iran here to the right, and you can see Kuwait City here to the left. Small country, Kuwait. You're probably familiar with that. The Kuwaitis intercepted 4 IRGC-linked operatives who infiltrated their territory, their foreign minister is saying here. So some of these small boats with 4 Iranians were captured. They were going to target a United States military base there, or that is what the news is saying. That's what's coming out. Kuwait says 4 people affiliated with the IRGC arrested trying to enter by sea. That is a real problem here. When Iran starts to ostracize more allies like the Kuwaitis, or former allies like the Kuwaitis, you know what they've done to the UAE, you know what they've done actually to Iraq, and now the Kuwaitis. And the Kuwaitis have a long-standing relationship with the United States. So this is a bad move. So this is a really bad move by the Iranians. You can see the international waterways marked here in that dark line. So they sent a small boat across the Persian Gulf to come over here to this island, to intercept it off this island, to possibly target the United States forces that are in that area. It's called Bubiyan Island, I believe is the name of this island here. And that's where they were captured. Now, there's 4 names that have been released of these Iranians that were captured. I'm not even going to try to butcher these names. At this point, it's not really relevant. But the big level of importance is this is the first capture of Iranian military. There's a lot of rumors that the Iranians are running out of money to pay their military. So was this an escape plot by the Iranian military? Were they just over there I don't know what you would send for Iranian officers. There was a couple of colonels, a couple of lieutenants. I don't know what you would send them across the Persian Gulf to do on their own, unless these are some kind of like massive special forces like SEAL Team Delta. I don't know how this is beneficial for the Iranians, but this could be very damaging to anything that they want to accomplish. You can see here, according to reports, number of news outlets, the IRGC attack against Kuwait's Bubiyan Island was an attempt to target U.S. forces and satellite infrastructure on the island. Kuwaiti forces captured 4 IGRC members, which included 2 Guard naval captains, a Guard naval lieutenant, and a Guard army lieutenant. So they're up to something, or they thought they were going to be up to something. This is Bubiyan Island. I think I got that wrong there in the beginning. But this could really be a game changer, because now we can, I think the Kuwaitis have a way of interrogation that may not align with Geneva Convention. I think the United States Special Forces and probably CIA that are in that area are going to want to talk to these individuals. Iran's foreign minister confirmed Kuwait detained 4 Iranian nationals. He says it's illegal, said it happened near an island used by the U.S. to attack Iran, and demanded their release. I don't believe that they have a lot of leverage here. Kuwait said the 4 men were tried to enter by sea for hostile attacks. 1 Kuwaiti officer was wounded. 2 suspects escaped. So 2 got away, and Iran's ambassador was summoned. This is not good for Iran, because this is happening, like I said, all in the background while the president of the United States is meeting with Xi Jinping. How do you think this is going to play out? I don't know. Now, there's been a couple of other coincidences that happened over the last 24 hours. Yesterday, there was a massive earthquake in Tehran, and apparently this morning, another massive earthquake, 5.0 earthquake, struck near Bardasir in the Kerman province. So the Kerman province, massive earthquake hit overnight in the Kerman province. And you can see where this is here. So you've got the Straits of Hormuz here. Looks like it's probably about 700 kilometers. I'm just going to eyeball that northeast of the Straits of Hormuz. This is a area that is apparently protected. This could have been an area where they were testing underground nuclear weapons. We don't know yet. And the big reason we don't know is because of the internet blackout in that area. So I'm not sure what is going on there, but it's kind of odd, if you believe in coincidences, to have 2 earthquakes. One was, I think, about 4.5, and now we have a 5.0 happening at the same time that the president of the United States is in China meeting with the prime minister of China. Is this a coincidence? I don't know. But I think what we're seeing are things happening behind the scenes in Iran that they can't control. This country is not someone that we need to allow to have a nuclear weapon. It's not someone that we need to allow to control the world's economy like the Straits of Hormuz. This can't go on. Iran is running out of leverage. They're running out of storage for their oil. I think China is running out of patience with Iran. I think at the beginning it might have been cute to antagonize the United States military, to antagonize the president. But right now, Iran is playing with something that China can't allow them to play with, and that's their economy. That's their ability to move goods and services. And with Iran maybe experimenting with some nuclear weapons, do you think China is going to trust them? I can't see that happening. I think the president of China, Xi Jinping, commands a level of respect with the president of the United States to a point where trust but verify. And Trump has always thrown praise at China, wanting to build up that relationship, build up that partnership. We don't need China as an enemy. They will be a much better ally. We may not trust a lot of what they're doing. We may not trust some of their methods. But China is so powerful. They are probably as powerful as we are. They're probably our equal on the world stage. And with that being said, I would much rather have them aligned with us. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if Trump can talk or negotiate China into leveraging their purchases of oil against Iran and showing the liabilities that Iran has, that's only going to be a win for the United States. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here. I got to go to work. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this kind of breakdown covering basically all the news in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, including Russia, then smash the like and subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. And if you want to know more about China flipping on Iran, check out this video here. I go into a little more coverage on what's happening specifically in the Strait of Hormuz and how Iran has threatened some Chinese ships. Take care.